Welcome to the On the Rise podcast, where we talk about time freedom, passive investing through real estate, finance, and mindset. Let's dive in. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I am not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer. All right, welcome back on the Rise podcast listeners. I'm your host, Jeremy Dyer. Thank you again for jumping into yet another episode. I've got another amazing guest with me, as I do always. I have Wayne Seminoff. Wayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to chopping it up with you. So Wayne is coming to this podcast episode with a unique perspective on land investing. Wayne got into real estate over 50 years ago by accident, and he soon found that the niche of undeveloped land was the most productive. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you about this, Wayne, because typically on this podcast, we talk a lot about brick and mortar. But in this case, we're not talking about, buildings and value add and, kind of real estate, sticks and mortar, so to speak, but we're talking about land. So maybe you can let our listening audience know a little bit more about yourself, your journey, what you're focused on today, etc.
Yeah, glad to do that. Okay, what I do is magic. Nobody does what I do. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I developed this thing on my own, and I can buy a piece of land for $1,000 and with a little manipulation, make it buildable and sell it for 400 to 500,000. And in fact, I bought one piece of land 6 months ago. I bought it for 1,000. And it's a half-acre land in a right next to commercial district. And I just got the title cleared on it, the problem that was with it, and now it's worth $1 million. That's what I do. Okay. Nobody knows what land's worth. Raw land, especially junk-looking land, little triangles or little landlocked pieces, they think they're worthless. If you put a house on it, everybody knows what it's worth, so you can't deal with that. So I only deal with things that appear to be junk. You can buy them for peanuts, pennies on the dollar. And then I have 7 techniques I do to fix junk and make it buildable. And I wrote 2 books and 50 videos, and I put it on my site. It's called junklandinthegold.com. And it can teach anybody with actually no knowledge of real estate how to make $1 million in real estate by just learning any one of the techniques and going out and buying these little junk pieces. And I typically buy them at the tax sales. In King County, they have a tax sale once a year. And I go to the tax sale and I look at the list, and then I peruse the list, and I look at it like a gold pan full of gravel. And there's probably 200 properties on this list. So you got 200 pieces of gravel, but every pan that I go through has a gold nugget in it, no matter what. It's unbelievable. And if you go through 100 or 200 properties, just go through one at a time, you look at it and see which of the 7 principles that I have applied to it to fix it. And then you work on that one. And then what I do is I call them in advance of the sale. And I say, are you going to let it go on the sale? And then if they say yes, I say, well, hell, I'll buy it from you. And I offer them $500. And then typically what they say is, you think I'm crazy? Sell it to you for $500? And I say, well, how much do you want for it? And believe it or not, they come back like this one I bought for 1,000. The guy said, well, I've got a sister I got to split it with. So if you give me 1,000, I'll sell it to you. And this is a half-acre land in a prime commercial residential water, sewer, and power access. It's a perfect piece. The only problem was the title was messed up. And one of my tricks is clearing title. And it took me 3 months to clear it. I just had my attorney. I paid him $15,000 to do it, and he cleared it. I use an expensive attorney. You can get a local attorney to do it for probably $5,000. And once he cleared the title, the property value went from 1,000, which I paid, to 500,000 in that neighborhood. And then I went to the city and I said, since I got a half acre, can I cut it in half and make 2 lots worth 500 apiece? And they said, yes. So I just completed my short plat. Now I have 2 lots, each worth 500,000. That's $1 million. And my total investment is about 35, 40,000 to pay all the costs. So for that investment, I'm putting it on the market probably in the next 2 weeks. I can sell it for, make a $900,000 profit.
So what you're saying, just so that I'm hearing you correctly, I could just walk into my local municipality right now and request, a list of properties that are available that currently do not have uh, dwellings on them, land, that maybe don't even have, appropriate titling. Ask for this list, sort through the pieces of gravel, look for the piece of gold, and is that really the secret sauce? I mean, there's got to be more to it, in terms of the process. And why is it that most other people, aren't leveraging this type of a strategy? Is it just purely because most people are just not educated in how to clear a title on a piece of undeveloped land?
What I do, I call it stupid simple. It's really, really simple. It's not complicated. If you know the tricks, it's like if you're looking for a diamond there, and then there's a bunch of rocks in front of you, and the diamond's under a rock, all you have to do is pick up the right rock. You just have to know where the rock is. Okay. And what I do is I tell you where the rock is and where to look for it. And if you, this is as simple as it is. Let's say, uh, well, let's see, how should I describe it? Um, there's 7 principles. You learn the 7 techniques. One is, um, uh, if it doesn't perk, the properties that don't perk, that means that you can't get a sewer on them. Properties that are landlocked, uh, properties are triangular shape, which is a real thing, and small. Um, you look for uh, properties in a really nice neighborhood, but they've never been built upon. And then you have to find out what the problem was. But that's another one. But let's say you target landlocked properties. That's simple. And how you solve that is you just go to the neighbor and ask for an easement to get access to it. That's a solution. It's so simple. And you offer them a lot of money. And so let's say I bought a landlocked piece of property for $1,000, and I can put a little road next to the house in front of it. I approach the guy and I say, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $10,000 if you give me an easement to put this little thing in. And and that's but I don't pay him the money until I sell the property. So I don't have to pay him the 10,000 until I sell that property for, 100,000, 500,000, whatever multiplier that one's worth. And that's it. That's the whole process.
I'm Zach Captainstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investor. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, you can go to our website and set up a call with our team.
I think when most people hear this kind of concept of, undeveloped land, they immediately think about, or they picture remote acreage out in the boonies, right? But I think you're defining, underdeveloped land in a different way. And it's really coming down to premier locations in areas that you can demand a premium for that land, once you've resolved the titling issues.
That's correct. In fact, what I do is I target. I live in Kirkland, which is a real high rent district, and Bellevue, Kirkland, Bellevue. Yeah, Bill Gates lives in Bellevue. Okay, in fact, I owned a lot right next to Bill Gates' house. A junk piece I bought for $100, and I sold that piece in 24 hours for $40,000. I owned it for 24 hours. But anyways, I I live in Kirkland, and it's really high rent district, and I bought 2 lots right here in downtown Kirkland, and I paid 1,250 for one lot. It was wetland. and it's half a mile from my house. Real nice neighborhood. Third of an acre, and people think you can't build on wetlands, but one of my techniques is building on wetlands, and you can build on any wetland in King County. There's a law that says you can, but nobody knows it. But I know it, so if you go and press the city, they'll let you do it. So I did that one, and I end up selling that piece for $400,000 to a builder. And then I bought another one right next to Costco in Kirkland, which is another really nice. I mean, it's the first lot, the closest lot to Costco in Kirkland, and I paid, I think it was $1,500 for it. And it was triangular, and it didn't quite. It was really hard to get a house foundation in it. And then I had it surveyed, and just by accident, the city had put the cul-de-sac property on my property by about 10 feet, the paving. And so I asked the city to remove their paving. They did. And then it made it a big enough triangle to build on. So instead of selling it, I built a sixplex boarding house on it. And so technically that land today is worth 600,000, but it sits underneath a 3-story, 30,000 square foot, 3,000 square foot home. That's a 5-unit boarding house.
That's great. Well, you've certainly found the niche here, Wayne, for land developing and land investing. But I always think about that individual out there that thinks, well, this sounds too good to be true. So for somebody that's listening today that's intrigued, but maybe they're skeptical, what would you say is the biggest, myth about land investing that stops people from ever getting started in the first place?
Well, the number one thing is just lack of knowledge. If they knew how simple it was, it's just, I call it stupid simple. If you know any one of these techniques, if you get good at it, you can make $1 million. If you just know one technique, like clearing title or building in a wetland or getting access to landlocked properties, it's so simple. I mean, like the landlocked properties, you don't even have to use a tax sale. You can just go and get a map of your neighborhood and look for landlocked properties, ones that don't have access. And then you don't even have to buy the property. You can go and make a deal with the neighbor and see if he'll do it. And then if he'll do it, then go buy the property. I mean, it's so easy. It's so easy. But it does require a little bit of guts because you got to go and bang on that neighbor's door and say, hey, will you take $10,000 for it? Or if it's really valuable, you can say, I'll give you $100,000 for access. If it's a Bill Gates's neighborhood, and 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 they don't have to do anything. That's anyways. The point I'm trying to make is that anybody can, once they learn the tricks, everything becomes clear and simple. And in the program I wrote with the 50 videos, it tells them exactly how to walk through each step. The book says one thing, and then I got 50 videos that go into even more detail of the 7 things. I'm just saying the 7 things over and over again with more detail. And I tell them, like how to talk to city planner guys, because those are the guys who have to approve all this stuff, and what to say to them, the actual words. And so you don't have to know much. You just have to read the stuff, remember it, and go do one. And my goal is, well, when I first started, and you should buy one lot at least, and then just play with it. And then, if you spend $1,000 or 2,000 or whatever. And the key to making this work, there's one major key that you have to remember, is you have to buy from a don't wanter, somebody who does not want the property. So junk land, if you could call somebody and they've owned it for 20 years and they can't do anything with it and they just given up, he's the guy who'll sell it to you for $500, But if he's a wanter and he believes that even his garbage is worth gold and he wants $1 million for it, you say goodbye. And there's so many don't wanters, and the biggest category is people who inherit their property from their family. People who inherit property, they hate the property because they hate their parents or they hate the people they got, and they're more than happy to sell it to you for nothing. And I've even bought houses from inherited kids who inherited their property. They just let the property go and they let it go in the tax sale. And I bought a whole bunch of houses for $45,000 in downtown Seattle from kids. And I just I go bang on their door and I say, hey, I'll give you $45,000 cash if you sell me your house. And they go, sure. I say, sign here. And I give them the money and, boom, boom, boom. So the key is a don't wanter. Another don't wanter is the guy who lives in Omaha with his own property in Seattle for 20 years and never done anything with it. So when I get the tax list, I call everybody who doesn't live in town and see if they want to sell it. And typically I target raw land, little junk pieces. And some are actually not even junk, like the one I bought in Issaquah. It's a half-acre golden piece of property. I mean, that is not junk. So that was prime property, but he's going to let it go in the sale. And I call him up and I say, hey, why are you going to let it go in the sale? And they go, well, da 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 da. And then you say, well, I'll buy it, and then you can venue with them $500, take you 5 minutes, and then send them a deed on Sign Now or DocuSign, and you have that done in a half hour, and in one day you own this gorgeous gold nugget for $500. That you don't even have to use escrow. You just call them, tell them to, just send them a deed to sign.
Yeah. So Wayne, I was going to interrupt you here if you don't mind. You strike me as an action taker. And I know that those that listen to this podcast regularly are also action takers. So given that fact, what would be the one first best step that somebody that's listening to this episode today, should move towards doing their first land deal? What's that one step, would you say?
You have to get your tools first. And the best way to get the tools is I put them in that program. It's called junklandintogold.com. And I think it's for sale for $1,000. But if they give the discount code of FUN, they get it for half. So for $500, once you learn the tools, once you have the knowledge, that's the power. That's the key. And you don't have to learn all of them. All you have to do is learn. All you have to learn is one. This one good one is all you need. And then you just go and target that particular type of property. And the best part about it, it is fun. When I do this stuff, it's like playing Monopoly, except when the game's over, you take that paper money to the bank and they give you real dollars for it. And it always shocks me that I can make so much money off something I paid so little for. I mean, it always surprises me. I always think it's not going to work. I think, no, this ain't, you bought a piece of junk, it's junk. And inevitably, I end up with this giant pot of gold. And I've done it hundreds of times, not once, but hundreds of times. I probably bought and sold probably 1,000 properties by now, maybe more, maybe 2,000.
Well, this conversation, Wayne, has been absolutely fascinating, and I've really appreciated your perspective here. It's interesting. I can't think of anybody listening to this podcast that wouldn't want to take $1,000 and turn it into hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we appreciate the work that you've done in order to make this type of an investing strategy known, and certainly thank you for the shout out for your website. Would there be maybe one or two other ways that our listening audience can connect with you to learn more about what you're up to offline?
You can go to my site and you can email me, and my assistant will send me the message. And then if you send me your phone number, I'll call you. That'll work.
That sounds great. What's a good email address that we can plug into the show notes for the episode?
Well, you can probably use mine direct. It's Wayne@isomedia.com. WAYNE at ISOMEDIA.com. And then there's one other point I want to add. This teaches you how to make a lot of money, but if you're not happy, the money doesn't matter. So I have two other sites to make you happy. One is called achieveloveenergy.com. This teaches you with a 1-minute meditation to put your perspective in happiness all day long while you're searching for gold nuggets. And then the second one is if you have a lot of fear because of nuclear war threats and all that stuff, I have another site. It's called thefuturewasperfect.com. And that site it relieves you of all your fear of the future being negative. Because if you live in fear, you can't enjoy your millions. So you want to be able to enjoy your millions, be happy and love energy, and have no fear. That's my goal.
Well, amen to that. And Wayne, again, we've really appreciated the value that you've brought us today and kind of bringing us up to speed on investing in undeveloped land. So, with that said, really appreciate you, and we look forward to having you join us on another episode.
Oh, I'd love to. In fact, I've got a lot to say. So I've got a lot to say that I can. My goal is to help young people, get out of the rut they're in, make a lot of money, and find love, energy, and be happy, and change their lives. That's my goal. That's what I want to do, and I'm sincere about that. It's not to make money. This is just to help people. So that's what I want to do.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you for giving back in that way as well. And listening audience, we thank you again for jumping into yet another episode of the On the Rise podcast. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the On the Rise podcast. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decisions, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the On the Rise podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.